Okay, making of is the 24th of March. We're looking to release this before April Fool's Day. And we have a story here, and we have a script that is three chapters, three acts, so it's 90 minutes. We don't even know what it's called, but yeah. But we're happy to know that the directing will be interesting. Here's Cal Cat. Yeah, we have all the figures out here, and so even though there's a lot of hay fevery stuff going around, a lot of other stuff. Yeah, we're gonna try and do some filming this evening, but it's the Decepticons who have gravelly voices anyway, so it should be fine. Um, so, so we have maybe maybe it won't be fine. Yeah. So, don't know what the episode is called. It's the third in the trilogy, the Transformers Legacy. It has more Transformers than G.I. Joe, so it's Transformers and G.I. Joe. A little less Robotech. I think there's like one, maybe two Robotech people mentioned. And at the end, they'll find a way to get back to 2024. Curiously through dimensional travel or whatnot. But in this story, so it's not technically time travel. It's more like some of them will hop back to make another timeline by going back, which doesn't correct the timeline. It makes it would make another one effectively. It would be more like the idea of the Marvel multiverse, a little bit of the DC one, than it would be the spoof of that. More than it would be Back to the Future. They would be just changing some events around so that in one version of the universe some of them will go and get away and go back to 2024, and that timeline can continue from there. This episode will be set in 2038, but in that universe it's crumbling and being torn apart by the space gods having intervened last episode. So the universe is going to be torn asunder anyway. So the idea is that they can send them back and prevent the universe from ever being torn asunder, but they would not remember. They would remember what happened. Some of them would, but some of them wouldn't, and they'd get back. So, yeah. No. But in this one, they're not trying to get back. They're just it's kind of the Invid invasion. So there's some Robotech, but the Invids are Transformers. So in this version, so yeah, Transtech. It's a Transtech Legacy. But yeah, we haven't come up with a title. It's not called Covenant of Primus because at no point is the Covenant of Primus actually mentioned in the story. So it's not called that. You could call it the alternate invasion or something. Something like that. Because the characters are interfering with the time stream, is it really an invasion or is it just the universe is whacked? Something like the Loki season 1 or something. Just the universe is whacked. They gotta go fix it. Yeah, so there's gonna be a lot of demigod things popping out and stuff. And you might say, oh, Calicat just saw the Ghostbuster thing and he's probably just copying Ghostbuster Frozen. No, I'm not copying Frozen Empire. The script was written several days ago, and I watched Frozen Empire yesterday. So it has nothing to do with it. Nothing at all to do with it. So let's try to block a scene. Let's go and film this thing. This one will also be dedicated to Mega Mom. So yeah. Yes, of course. That's the trilogy is. We'll see what happens from here. Okay, so I got through the teaser, but if I do any more of this, I'm liable to give myself laryngitis or something. So I better give it a rest for the evening. Because man, but we did some Decepticon things, introduced some Decepticon scenes. It's very cool. So yeah, we're doing another one. I'm not sure what to call this one. Anyway, so yeah, that's not much to say about the making of for this. So yeah, they were on day 2 of shooting the story. Allergy, hay fever stuff going on. Makes it kind of hard to do more than this for the evening. So yeah, that's all that's going on. so far. Yeah, I'm gonna leave this brief because I mean there's other bloggy stuff, but don't need to mention that because it gets cut out anyway. So Trans Tech, this is what's going on. It's a third installment, again loosely based on sayings, witticisms, and blogs of Mom, but not directly. It's in the tradition of as if she wrote a Transformers. Now a trilogy, apparently. So yeah, there we are. It's over. Yeah. So now we're giving this title though. The Decimation Paradox, not predestination paradox. It's a play on words. Decimation Paradox. Yeah. So we got this guys over here. Just thought I would point out that this is the Hasbro Jetfire, making of, I guess, and that was from the store, the Hasbro Jetfire, and and a while back. But the cool thing is Primal Prime here, who is from the I think 2006 visit to the Mall of America. Did you say it was about then? Maybe it was probably 2006. Might have been 2004. And might have been 2004. It was earlier. Or earlier than that, because that's when they came out. Somewhere around there, when the FAO Schwartz store was still in the Mall of America. And they had that guy. And I bought him. Excellent. But yes. Anyway, so yeah. Would have been the early 2000s, yeah. It might have been before 2006, actually. Because he was in the movies. Oh, yeah, he was in so, yeah, it would be, if he was in Trans Tech, it would have been like 2002. No, maybe. No, the sequels were in production in 2005, 2006. So, yeah, it could have been still 2004 or 5. I think it was 2004, now I think about it. So they had those. They had one. They had a couple of them left. Anyway, so, yeah, let's do the scene. It's gone now. The FAO Schwartz store is closed. So yeah, my voice is not quite back yet. So this is going to sound a little froggy all the way through. But I get they are Transformers, so they do anyway. So it kind of works. So yeah, this is a really brief. I don't really want to ramble on too much about that because on the really brief thing here at the end, I was going to say stuff about different. Yeah, there's no point. I could go on about other sci-fi things that are currently, but they're not involving me. So I would rather not. Just say, this is the Transformers thing. We finished the one act, basically 30 minutes so far. And we have 60 to go, 2 more acts. And then this movie's done. So we are a third of the way through. And it looks to be blocked about, that's what it is in the can. So. And this was a little footage on the second unit camera because the first one ran out of tape, but only just barely. So, yeah. And when you watch it, you'll see like, oh, the Skyfire thing is a little off, but I caught it, and then I redid the entire beginning of the Skyfire thing. So it's all on here on this tape. It's all there. Just gotta look for it. Well, there's the proper one right there. So yeah. So there's a rehearsal take, and then there's a better one on here. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. Transformers and their demigods and Chip. Although the battle scene was a non-plus battle scene, it's like, well, it's kind of written that way. They were clearly knocking each other around. Grimlock kicks Ritter, which is funny. Never thought of it being kicked by the Dinobot. So you didn't think that was going to happen. Douche. Yeah. But yeah. Sort of like in the first movie when the laser gun beats Ninja. Which is a meme, by the way. So we have, a laser gun beats Space Ninja. Yeah, it's a meme. Anyway, so yeah, and the Skibbity is also a meme. So Although we don't actually show a skibbity, somebody just mentions it. Yeah, we don't show that. Just a mention of it. Ew. So, yeah. Transformers. Transformers, what is this one called? We're calling it, Decimation Paradox. Because we just like the word decimation. To cut it into 10 pieces. Always like the word decimate. So the early Silly Track days, and I drew the decimated saucer section of the Enterprise. Clearly inspired by Star Trek 3 that had only happened about a year and a half earlier. So, decimation of the Enterprise. Well, anyway, so, yeah, bringing back the space demigods, Zor Lords, doing foul. Having it set in 2038 and just saying, okay, yeah, but they'll find a way back to 2024 at the end because they kind of have to return to where they were. So apparently the 2032 story and the 2038 story would become moot if the universe wasn't already askew. So they recall and remember those other elements anyway, as though they happened, and then go back to their own time period. So they are aware of the elements that happen. Especially the Transformers. Maybe not so much the humans, but the Transformers would be aware that something weird happened and they got sent back. Thus, all the deaths would be negated. At least in one universe, anyway. If the Invid and the other was destroying the universe entirely, and they're saying, like, 2038 is when the universe is wrecked by this wormhole thing that's going on. As the universe is wrecked, then they can go back. And no, it has nothing to do with Ghostbusters Frozen Empire at all. Because at that point I hadn't seen it. The script was written. I saw the movie last weekend, so yeah, it has nothing to do with that. Not even close to what that movie's about at all. Unless the ghost destroyed the universe. So it's not time travel. It's sort of like a spoof of the end of The Flash more than anything. They're just trying to fix He's going back to try to fix the universe he came from and messing it up. Kind of like that. Yeah. A little bit like that. Except the joke being that they have to fix it because it's messed up. Not because Flash messes it up, but because they messed it up. So the other universe could still happen. Or Space Bridge could still happen. And the other Robotech universe, they could still return. And they can do other things. Yeah, it'll be fine. Very Robotech-like. Not so much Transformers, very Robotech-like. But it is a Transformer story. Anyway, so that's it for the evening. It's about 7, I think. Something like that. Anyway, so yeah. We got a scene pickup for the little, the guy. He's a little guy. Let's see. Scene pickup for, mainly twin twist topspin here. Mainly that guy. It's mainly him. Yeah, mainly it's page 1, and it's mainly page 26, and it's regarding him being out of focus a little bit, just a little bit. It's not the whole thing. It's just this one. Damn it! Stand there and don't be stupid. Come on. Okay, making of day 3 evening notes. We nearly got to the end of the middle of the story, really, of halfway through Act 2, almost. And we don't need to do more this evening. Probably shouldn't. But if we did, we could go up to the very end of that scene. It's 4 pages away. But we probably won't. And note that there was an ad lib with Starscream and Spike. They had alter egos. They were the humanoid copies of them that were put on Earth. They had a relationship, and they were aware of it. The robot forms were aware of it, what they did, because they're connected by the Robotech and the Shapings and the Transformers and the Primes. And they had a relationship. So there was an ad lib in there. The ad lib, just note in the story, the ad lib is better than the later line that references Barbie and Oppenheimer, the hit movies from last summer. That didn't need to be in here because the story takes place in 2038, and there didn't need to be a line about Barbie and Oppenheimer. It's not like in the Starship Locations Destination story where they referenced the classic movie Field of Dreams, and how one of them was obsessed with it. It's not the same thing because that movie is still remembered 30 years later, and it's a classic, even though it sucks. It's boring, in my opinion, in my humble opinion. But in the case of Barbenheimer, two good movies, Oscar-worthy movies, they might be remembered in the future in 20 years. But you figure the story takes place in 2038 in an alternate future. Why would the Transformers remember that? Why would that be a reference? And since you already have the Starscream and Stella, the Chip and Stella relationship / Starscream relationship mentioned earlier on, you don't need that in there. If you want to do the scene anyway, when you get back from the other thing, youth group, then do the scene so she's not talking about Oppenheimer at all. She's talking about him being with Starscream. That's what's creeping her out, because she's one of the other robots. So she's like, okay, yeah, it's not as cringe as you and Starscream. That would make more sense, because that ties into the other scene. So that's what I would do to fix that. Just a minor nit. Yeah. So far, the dailies look good. Yeah. No reshoots. Voice sounds still a little froggy, but it's okay for Transformers because they're robots. But the girl voices do sound a little strained. Anyway, yeah. So that's all I'm doing with that. Yeah, I mean, we're not on a schedule. We don't need to have it done by April 1st. But yeah, it would be nice, but things are what they are. It's only the 27th. It's still possible we could finish principal photography before the 1st, pretty easily. But yeah, I want to, and it's sort of playing like it's a mid-season episode instead of a finale. And it's only a finale because we wanted it to be a trilogy, and then the story arc where they figure out a way to use the universe as askew to send them back at the end. So instead of having it continue on into the distant future for like episodes and episodes of stuff we'd have to come up with, and yeah, like the Invid Commander guy says, they've kind of running out of ideas. So. But yeah, so we can do other things. We don't need to. I just want to make this one good, so this one's good. This one's very meta. It's very self-aware, extremely self-aware, saying that there's not going to be a Titan battle at the end. No, there isn't. Extremely self-aware. There's different things going in and out of the universe. In the future, they might compare this to, did he see the Ghostbusters movie? And he's just put that in there. Actually, I'd seen trailers for the Ghostbusters movie, but I had not seen the movie before the script was done. So, no. Saw the movie last weekend, and we started filming, I believe, on Monday. So, or late Sunday, so right after the movie. But yeah, the script should not have been influenced in any way by the Ghostbusters movie. It's nothing like it, except there happens to be ghosts. Well, ghost transformer dimensional beings, I guess. They're kind of like proto-primes and prototrons. Because the Decepticons have a version of them too. So yeah, like the army that's attacking them is an army of the undead Transformers. So that's why some of them can't be shot at, and they keep going in and out and back and forth. Yeah, which the Cobra guys figured out in the Cobra scene. They're like, wait a minute, isn't he a ghost or a zombie or something? And Paramount is apparently going to be working on a G.I. Joe thing, but we're not involved. But we'll see. They haven't. Their track record with live-action G.I. Joe is not good. So they need to get somebody that really loved the material and that gets it. Actually, in some ways, the live-action Transformers, this is relevant. The live-action Transformers were actually more like a G.I. Joe movie meets the Transformers. Michael Bay would probably be a fairly good producer for something like that with someone else directing a G.I. Joe movie, because he knows rah soldier guys blowing shit up. It would be cool in a movie. Yeah, it's like, of course, yeah. He's done that with Michael Bay. Yes. Wouldn't say he should be director. He should not be director. It should be someone that loved the show and is keen on the lore and understands it, and is going to be like, okay, Destro has to be a certain kind of character. Cobra Commander, another kind of character. It isn't me. It's not me. Yeah, I would love to do a live action show. Although John Campea show was wrong tonight, saying the G.I. Joe thing, and then calling it Transformers Beast Wars for the movie. That wasn't the title. Transformers Rise of the Beasts was the title. And yeah, we seem to have been secretly involved on that one. At least that one scene with Transit, which was deleted. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, for the evening. So, making of note in the script that this would be a continuity error, but I fixed it. The continuity error is that Chip went with them into the space bridge, and shouldn't be in this scene. All of them went except the little pink robot thing. So it's not Chip. It's the guy that they referenced earlier. It's Louie, who they address in this next scene. So let's do the next scene. It's Louie, not Chip. Okay, so when you come back to the script to follow it, it's Louie. Okay. All right. So yeah, making of. Yeah, that's fine that's Louie, but that does screw up another scene later on, and messes up that Chip has to be there, because otherwise Louie would get totally killed right here, by the crossfire from the Transformers. So so let's fix that. Also, let's give Louie a surprise battle armor so that he doesn't get killed. So that's what I'm gonna do right here. Yeah. Note in the script, I don't think it's going to be important here, but Chip is already in the other dimension, and they've pulled him out again and put him in the story. He's already over there. He's gone through the space bridge. Can't be him. Got to be Marissa, because Marissa's right there. So let's do this. Yeah. So there's another scene, and he says, "Oh, we got a Prim line too." Doesn't make any sense that Prim would even be there in that scene. But I guess she is. Didn't they kill her in the Invid? Yeah, wasn't she fighting the Invid lady? You're not a Decepticon. Actually, it'd be kind of funny as a gag. Okay, let's put these guys over here. The camera's rolling, of course. And where's the Invid lady? Yes. Prim is riding on the Invid lady. You're not a Decepticon. That'd be kind of silly. They just show up together. Okay. All right. So note that this has some changes to the dialogue from the script, and that Jenna's lines, because we couldn't find the Jenna action figure, because who cares really, are given to Ultra Magnus because we can't find her. So, yeah. And yeah. So after this, we'll probably do an after show thing separate from the making of for this trilogy dedicated to Mom, Victoria Brown, dedicated to Mumsy, who is not doing well. Yeah, so, but the Star Trek one is too, and the other stuff. Doing fan films is actually very therapeutic and keeps you out of trouble, and it doesn't cost anything. So, when you do a fan film that's keeps you out of trouble. It's interesting that, keep doing it. Well, sure, why not? Keep going, so we have Transformers. I was going over the making of thing. We have about half an hour of making of footage. I'm not padding it. I'm trying to explain some of it. So this is more of the making of than it goes on the video. So we have, and now the white balance. This is the older camera, so it does that. But now it's not a deal breaker. It's a making of. It doesn't need to be a long making of. Usually we cut lots of stuff out where we ramble on about other things like other science fiction books and movies. I'm not going to do that even here. It is odd that I brought up 3 or 4 times in there. This is not like Ghostbusters in any way. Why I thought, not really paranoid about it. I wasn't paranoid about it. Why I thought that somehow in the making of my own stuff, which is not for profit anyway, that I would be ripping off Sony movies, and much less Ghostbusters sequels, which are, why would I do that? Why I thought that I would be worried that somebody might think it's a ripoff. And it really isn't. If anything, it's what we finished today. What we finished today was more of a spoof of little Transformers, obviously, in Robotech. A little bit of elements of Interstellar, a little bit of elements of the Tesseract thing, and the time warped on the bookshelf and all that kind of a little bit of that. Kind of like, okay, you can get back if you go through a certain door. Do that. A little bit of Monsters Inc. a little bit of Pixar. A little bit of Marvel, mentioning the power cosmic, the space power is basically the power cosmics in Marvel. Because Transformers was a Marvel comic back in the day. It's weird because now it's a Disney thing. So doesn't make sense. Transformers is what Marvel is. That's kind of weird. So we have this weird crossover. But yeah, and mention of the guy that was part of Star Trek Online, who no longer is. He's going over to work for DC. That's not relevant here either, because we're not going to work for Star Trek Online either. So it doesn't matter. I think that's been mentioned a few times. It's like it's like really prolific. I put out 3 90-minute fan film movies in a month. That's pretty impressive. More impressive was the Robotech one in a month, but this one here is like miniseries. But yeah, I don't know why Hollywood doesn't hire the Cal Catster, because it's like, damn, he could crank them out. Just like, well, the middle one was a little weaker because it was not scripted. The middle one was a little weaker. But it's not bad. It's good. It's very good. But it's a little weaker because it wasn't scripted. So this one had to be scripted just to establish things. And then there were some oddities with certain characters that kept coming and going because I didn't keep track of where they were going. Doing an outline first helped with that. With the second one. Because then I could say, like, okay, this guy jumped out of the story. Some other ones jumped out of the story too, like Twin Twist is gone. And some of them are just gone. And the Decepticons came back and they're gone. I think what I was trying to do in the story was that I guess it's not an after show, but it kind of, the whole series. What I wanted to do with the second and third movies was to establish what happens to those guys after the Robotech expedition and their universe comes back, and show some of that. But then be able to negate the whole thing at the end by saying, oh well, they have the primes, and they can go back and correct the damage they did and at the end of movie 1 and fix it. So it doesn't happen that way. We're presuming that universe does happen because they established in the first story that even Transformers Animated, which was supposed to take place in the 22nd century, but it came out in 2010, that one actually did happen, and yet everybody that was in it and all the characters and actors that were in it, they thought created reality, and a version of Transformers was created. And that version of Transformers had gone on. And they have since aged out, and it's 14 years later, and there's a connection there. 14 years later, and the story goes 14 years. There's a connection with Transformers Animated, without showing any Transformers Animated characters. Yeah. And before I forget, F.A.O. Schwartz
FAO Schwartz was in the Mall of America and went out of business in 2002. That was when we visited the FAO Schwartz store. It was just before that. So we went there, and then there was another visit later on, around 2005, 2006, but this was the earlier one. And we went there, went to the FAO Schwartz store, and there was a Primal Prime, and I had to have one, so I bought them. Just before, don't forget, that was 2002. So that would have been during Trans Tech, the first Trans Tech. And during that. But yeah, so yeah, there's the, and this is sort of a spiritual sequel follow-up. It's sort of a Space Bridge thing again. They're sort of like doing another alternate version of Space Bridge, like as if they had a budget. Although it didn't cost us anything. But it did have a budget, and they put the three. If you line up the Space Bridge slightly altered remakes from the other archive channel, it does seem a little bit like Space Bridge, like they're doing the Space Bridge thing. They're hitting the same similar points, going in a similar direction, and cutting back through time in a similar way in the finale. It's very similar. We can rip off our own stuff. Not blatantly, though. They didn't. It was 2048 to 2018 in the final Space Bridge. The Shadow Children was a little different. The Invid had different powers. The other people had different powers. I liked the gag of how it can fit this into the Dark Forest stuff and Three Body Problem stuff like that. How it can fit that in here is that a Dark Forest story where an alien race invades a planet, like in the Invid invasion, like the Decepticons that want to take over the universe. It's hilarious that the Decepticons think, or the Invid for that matter, think they can control the universe if they just go to Earth, take over part of Earth. Like, how would that make them control the universe? It's just Earth. So often sci-fi gets things a little screwy. We'll come out with a premise where you've got an alien race that lives on a weird planet in a weird orbit. The Gamelons, for instance, Star Blazers. They've got a planet that's half devastated. The other half is Iskandar, one half is Gamelons. And so they come to Earth from the Magellanic Cloud. They travel from a different galaxy even to get to this galaxy, to get to Earth. That literally is more than a needle in a haystack. That's ridiculous. So it's that kind of thing. It's like, no. They would never exist, let alone be interested in Earth. Any material they can find in space, and they have warp drive of some kind, they don't need to come to Earth. And there's numerous other planets they can go to without bothering Earth. The same thing with the Three Body Problem story, which is also called something else. It was a Netflix show. Same idea there. Planets in a weird orbit around a trinary star system. It's not really Centaurus because Alpha Centauri, Proxima Centauri, has a very, very long million-year kind of orbit thing. And Alpha Centauri A and B orbit each other about the distance of Saturn to the Sun. Between each other, the two stars. So, technically, the closest they get is Saturn, the closest they get is Jupiter, the furthest they get is Saturn. So it's like this thing. So they could easily have Earth-like planets in the habitable zone of Alpha Centaurus A and B, easily. There could be one with a 1-year orbit even, orbiting the A star. Orbiting and the B star could have one within an orbit of roughly Venus, 200-day orbit, 270-day orbit. And that would be just fine. The two planets would exist, they wouldn't interact with each other, and they would be in orbit. Also, Proxima does have a planet in its orbit around its star, but it's a red dwarf, so it's smaller. So yeah, they don't have a problem with that particular three-body problem. That Centaurus is fine. The three-point planets are. So. And if there are aliens, they're still way off there. Oh, the Pandora people have. Same thing there. You have your... You have a human group traveling across the stars to pick on this one planet in orbit of the Avatar planet, the Pandora planet. It's like, why? You have like other star systems that you could jump to. You have hyperdrive, and you get there in 6 years instead of 4. So why not go to a planet, another planet that is unobtainium that's not inhabited, go to Yeah, take off to a red dwarf that's close by, or something that has that. We made 6, 7 light years. Go to Bernard's star. Now there, where you don't have to mess with anybody. The Bernard star. It's 6.5 light years or something. You don't have to. Well, like the classic V show, went after the water. Why would they go after Earth's water? That doesn't make any sense. They could just go to the icy moons of the cometary cloud, or the cloud, and find whatever they need. Anyway, so the gag here was let's tell a story about these two invading forces coming to Earth in this story, and the Invid and the Decepticons, but they're sort of ethereal because of that. It's a little odd and convoluted, but if they're ethereal, then they can assume physical form and do stuff. Apparently, Starscream there's a little bit of an oddity in that we have Stella kind of introduced early on and talking to the other people, and then she disappears. But we can chalk that up to that scene is actually earlier than it appears in the story. She's moving around back and forth. She can do that. She has transporter powers. They all seem to have powers, but they don't have psychic. Yeah, they don't have psionic powers this time. They've lost those because of the connection to the awareness. So it's all scientific. I thought that kind of idea was kind of cool. It's like, okay, they aren't really reading each other's minds. It's more like the possessor aliens, the Dryadian, the Grygen in Canary Space, and they just have figured out a way to tap into the human mind because of the way the human mind patterns work. So they're not actually reading their minds and possessing them. It's just that they can imitate it so well that somebody in close proximity to them it's almost as if they can read them, but they really can't. They're just using subliminal suggestion and stuff, which is a little complicated. Kind of like that. Yeah. And there was a possessor alien in the Ghostbuster movie, and maybe that's what I was thinking of. I'm going to clarify that it's a different thing going on. And it's not really possession. It's robots hacking into each other's minds, basically. It's not really, it's not really like the fucking Exorcist or something. It's not the Exorcist. No. And I had made a joke on the Red Letter Media a while back when they were reviewing that awful Exorcist reboot thing that was on the thing, and I was saying, like, in the comments, the reason this movie doesn't work is, it's bad, but also the reason it doesn't work is because if it was a Mexican Latin family, they wouldn't have any problem with it. They would know what to do. So it was like a half joke, like okay, they would be familiar with that. So they'd get Mima or the mother out there, or something like that, the grandmother out there, and she'd be like, oh, Juan's got a demon. Here, give me the rolling pin. Wham! And then, okay, it's gone. So something like that. Rolling pin. So it's kind of like that kind of strange humor in the story, prevalent. Also, in the Ghostbuster movie, there was a pseudo, friendship betrayal / suggestively coded scene with this ghost girl and the girl that's in it. But because the girl that's in it is supposed to be playing a young teenager, they didn't really want to go there, and that's just as well they didn't. But because she's actually like 17 or 18 now. But the actress was playing someone younger. But it's like it'd be a little cringe. So, as the young people say, cringe. So in this story, there's a scene in which the character of Marissa, one of the characters, and the character of Prim apparently had a relationship, and I thought it would be a funny gag in one of the scenes that we filmed today. To have like it'll be funny as if like we reveal that, but then we like break the fourth wall, just like we did with the Cobra Commander scene earlier in the last episode. And we break the fourth wall and shatter it by having them say, not only are we going to make out right now because we love each other, but also we deliver the goods. So she turns to the camera and says, I deliver the goods. Because, it's not just coded. They're in love with each other. And then she has to go to the space bridge. Did we kill the gay? No, not technically. Because that universe was changed. So she's still alive out there. He's still alive. Yeah. And they indicate in the story that the universe the universe they're in since the time warp went poof, is a dead end universe. The proto devils or something else is going to show up. The proto devil from Macross 7 or something like that is going to show up, and it's going to mess with that universe, and that universe is doomed. That timeline is doomed. Sort of like the J.J. Abrams Trek timeline is doomed, because when V'ger shows up, he's going to kill everybody. And he probably already has, because if you look, because the 2016 movie, which was set like way too early, and everybody was doing their 5-year mission way before the 5-year mission even happened. You know that young upstart, young cadet Kirk shouldn't be a captain yet. You know he's not going to be able to handle V'ger. V'ger will just show up and kill everybody, and the Earth. So that universe, that timeline is doomed. So this idea in this story, prevalent through the story, was that these creatures who are kind of playing like the protoculture devils or the shadow children or whatnot, they're kind of playing like that. But we see them manifest in reality in the story so that they get defeated. The bad guys get defeated. The good guys and bad guys, there's a gray area here and there, and some of the Autobots are acting crazy. But yeah, it's pretty much good guys versus bad guys. And yeah, so we have it works, because they fight and they defeat the bad guys, and the universe is doomed in that universe, in that timeline. So once they're gonna have to reboot that somehow. So although it is a little time travel-y, it is kind of a cop out. It is a sideways universe kind of thing. The gag is that the 2032 story and this one, the 2038 story, are all part of a sideways universe, like, we're spooping Lost a little bit. And saying, well, actually, what we could do, the bad guy could open the gateway and go into the other thing and stop it. And maybe he did, and that's why the other universe happened. Yeah. Maybe the awareness in the story, the Robotech awareness, and maybe all their psionic powers are just connected to the primes and the Allspark. And they don't have psionic powers. They're just reading the thoughts and ideas and presence of the other people that have gone on ahead of them in that slightly different timeline. So they don't have powers. They're not even psychic. They're just reading, this other universe that was slightly like ours might happen this way. Going cold reading from there. All science. It was science, not magic. It was magic that was indistinguishable. Science that was indistinguishable from magic, if that advanced. That's Arthur C. Clarke. Yeah, he said any sufficient race that advanced would be, their science would be indistinguishable from magic. It would look like magic to us. They're just advanced transformers. And also the line about the primes and all that kind of set that off. That line of that little speech about Optimus Prime in the first part of the trilogy was like, oh yeah, he's kind of setting up this whole thing. He kind of knows, because he's a prime. They kind of knows this other thing doesn't happen this way. And it wouldn't be like we could go back and do another space bridge yet again and have the Robotech people show up in 2050. You could do that, or have them show up in 2038 and be back. No, this universe was clearly already askew when we meet them in 2032. There's clearly something wrong. It's clearly not the universe we're used to. The characters aren't acting like the ones we're used to. And then the 2038 story, this one, even less so. So there's something off. It's like a mirror dimension thing. So it's clearly that's what's going on. That's not too far-fetched either. I think it works. Yeah, it's a little interstellar. A little interstellar in that there's sort of a Tesseract-like thing going on. And across the edge of the universe. And in this Tesseract, fourth dimensional holodeck thing, the primes live there and hang out there. And there's like there are means to go anywhere in time they want, because space-time, they can see the dimensions. You go, okay, there's this. Ritter tries to break into the room. Ritter is a character from the Transformers Knowledge Lexicons characters. He's one of them. He gets to be in this. There's a number of other ones. I think Nova Storm disappears about halfway through this too, as does Twin Twist and Topspin is Prime. So a bunch of people disappear. T-Rex with a W disappears. T-Rex with a W was interesting because he was a find at a Target store on King Road down the street in San Jose during the pandemic. I think slightly after the pandemic. That's a while back, and none of them are particularly new that have come out. Yeah. So even though they might be, the fans might watch this and go like, you can't in the whole trilogy and go like, well, you can't kill Flint and Duke and then kill K-Bell and then inadvertently kill all the Robotech people off. But if it's a mirror universe, it wasn't supposed to happen. Then they're not dead. Yeah, it's just it's a lesson for them. They're gonna put them back. It's like a Q kind of thing, without it being necessarily Q. It's a lesson for them. It's kind of a return of dementia in space. It's a mystery. Yeah, it's a mystery where the ending is kind of a cheat, but kind of not. Kind of like saying, I guess that was the way we'd have to end it. Kind of wrote ourselves into a corner and said, well, the only way we end this is time travel. Some kind of time travel, because otherwise, how do we get back to 2024? But it's not quite 2024. When they get back, there's 2 of those junior RCs. There's other ones that are slightly different on the ship. Even when they meet the version of Chip and the two chips, they're slightly different. I think it works though. I think it has. It works. It's not. It's a Transformers fantasy story. It's sci-fi fantasy. They have the ability to go in and out of like Ghost Zombie Realm Land and be the Proto Devils or be the good guy ones. So there you go. We're the good guy ones. And the gag is that the Invid and the Decepticons, there aren't enough of them to take over the Earth, so they're really... If they took over the Earth in the other timeline, then... I don't know. How's that work? Well, it turns out the last 2 episodes, this one included, they've been visiting another similar and parallel universe, a mirror universe type of thing. They can always go back, or they can always go home. Which is different from the mom letters and journals, and that would be no, they kind of can't go home again. They kind of can't. But the making these video productions is I wouldn't get in trouble, of course, but it makes things easier in the universe. If you can do something that your hobby that you like to do, it's fine. It doesn't have to be a stickler for some of the other stuff. Mark's Cards was here yesterday. We were commenting he'd seen some of the stop motion Transformer stuff out there, and he agreed with the Cowcatster that if they're going to go through all the trouble of spending like hours with really good equipment to do a pretty awesome Transformers like space reenactment Transformers thing of the movie, or some kind of reenactment in space, and they're gonna have like the toys, and they're gonna go through all the motions of making your figurines look like something. Makes sense. Some of them do, some of them don't. Some of them have like, I got this terrific stop motion of Michael Bay Bumblebee transforming and then driving on the ground, and it's a carpet. He's driving on a carpet or a table. And there's a box of, like lemons or avocados or something in the background. There's a kitchen sink in the background, or a computer screen, or a mouse. It's like, dude, you go through all the trouble of putting together a stop motion video. Spend a little time doing the backgrounds. Make it look like a Transformer world. Some of those guys do. There's like that one about that Transformers movie reenactment. It's kind of fun. Like the guy made it look like the movie with like Lego figures and other stuff like that thrown in there. Kind of looked like the movie. Go for it. I mean, my stuff is prolifically. I just crank out stuff on cheap sets, but at least they're sets. At least it's backgrounds. Our next thing will probably be another Star Trek. We'll see. I'd like to do another Star Trek legacy story. Probably to capitalize on not to capitalize on Discovery season 5 because I'm going to review it. I'm going to review the season, but I don't think anybody's going to care, which is why they're canceling. but rather Section 31. It'll be that. Maybe the Academy too. We're kind of already doing that. And yes, Mark's cards. That we need to build. We need to put the bridge back. We need to have a bridge, like a dedicated bridge set, that space bridge set, kind of thing. On the cheap. No, we'll put a new bridge in. To have an actual bridge. We have the walls and stuff from elsewhere. Just at the floor of the bridge. We'll put everything on the floor. Like a bridge. Yeah, we can diorama kind of thing. But not like the one that we did before, but yeah. So yeah, Transformers, Decimation Paradox. Was going to be called Covenant of Primus, but ended up not being about them. And I don't know if it makes sense, but it's not supposed to, about the Primes getting shot or then coming back. Well, because they're in like a weird realm where it's kind of funny that the Raksha thing is actually a spoof of one of our unused, unsolicited stories many years ago. That character in this story, and in the other shared hallucination story as well. I called it that. It wasn't really. Multi-user shared hallucination is mush. All Transformers mush. So in one of the episodes, there's this Raksha character named after Raksha, and she's like, so years ago in the 90s, there was well, not just the BotCon girl, but that's different. Kind of different. It's named after her. But I never met her. But until I should say not never met her. I did meet her eventually. But yeah, the character, there was a story we wrote called The Mall Massacre. It was this like splatterpunk in a mall kind of story, splatter story, the warriors in a mall taking over and having like an insane mall character. And there was this girl taken after several different story arc and ideas. And the bad guy lady has a nail gun, and she gets at the end after killing the main good guy, who was back then a Bruce Willis archetype, oddly enough. Back, Die Hard crossed with a little bit of Lethal Weapon. And even though a nail gun can't actually fire, you'd have to press the nail to the person and then go. Doesn't fire like a gun. It can't do that. Even though in some Hollywood movies they show it like that. Oh, the nail gun it's like a real gun. No, you have to actually plunge it, thump, and then it goes in. You have to actually stick it to something, and then it goes in. Well, anyway, she goes to hell. She ends up in hell. And the devil's in there, and he's like, "Ah, well done, my evil servant, ha the hell." And she turns to him, and she goes, "Damn it, I'm taking over." She's that evil. She kills the devil, takes over hell. So the gag in this story is that she's trying to take over the Prime universe because she's evil. So that's that. Yeah. Also, we have the time that we met the director was actually last summer. Yeah, last summer. There was the convention, Fanime convention, and we had reason to believe that one of the guests was going to be Raksha and her snake people, and she was going to be there, not as a Transformers fan, but as a snake collector. So naturally, Mark's Cards and Calcat encountered them at the convention. It was them. That was awesome. Did not have any opportunity to talk about the Transformers, the BotCon Night Racer that she invented, all that. Didn't have any time to do that. Nope, just tell the snakes. Didn't do that at all. But rest of it, yep, she is bizarre. Yep. Nothing else happened. There was no exchange of any kind of information. Just that was it. She's a guest at the convention. But yeah, so we have another dedicated to mom episode. Right on. Maybe the whole all of the Brown Impression series. Queen Bee Studios, which is just another name for on location cat studio. It's not a studio actually. It's a guy in a room, first floor. It used to be on the second floor. It was on the first floor. So that's all that is. Yeah, no non-profit. It would be 503 if it was. It would be non-profit. Fan films on the cheap. This was almost going to be a Carta story. It was almost going to be like bigger and badder and have other things happening. But no. We thought that with all the other stuff going on, that a simple story where they have spooky stuff happen and spooky zombie ghost transformers chase each other around for like 90 minutes, that's fine. That's easy to do. Scene transitions, not much. Set transitions, not much. They're not on any different planet. It's what they would call a Planet Hell story back in the Next Generation, as opposed to a bottle show. A bottle show is on the ship or on a station. Bottle show. It's in the bottle. Ship in a bottle. Yes. And of course that blooper from Star Trek where Worf said, "I never play with boys." Yes. You have to explain the blooper. You know, it doesn't make sense out of context. Ships in a bottles when you were boys, and he fucked up the line and he said, "I never played with boys." Oops. Didn't say that right. But yes. Briefly, there was Picard Season 3 bloopers out, but they took them down within a day. And I did see them, and at one point, Riker says to Picard, "So, did you take the Quaalude that I gave you?" That was in the trailer, in the parody. Ew. But no, they didn't have Quaalude. They were kidding. No. And it's funny that the Legacy, Star Trek Legacy story that we did had more of Dr. Crusher and Deanna Troi doing stuff than in Picard Season 3. They gave them more lines. And they mentioned it. How come I have more lines in this than I did in the Star Trek Picard show? And they're more interesting lines, like talking about a space castle and stuff. Yeah, why did they forget me? It's not that hard to write characters, guys. It's not that hard. And some of my siblings think, "Oh, he doesn't get dialogue." I get dialogue if it's sci-fi. I really get it. I know those Transformer guys inside and out. I know Star Trek guys inside and out. If it's a Transformer story or a Star Trek story, I know it. Not so much Star Wars, but Star Trek. I don't know. Star Wars I'm a little fuzzy on. I get the idea of Star Wars, guys and Jedis and Hidden Fortress, that kind of thing. I get the idea. I get what's going on. So, yeah. And usually the people that complain about the stories not having enough substance don't themselves have a story with enough substance. It's funny how they say that. The complaining ones on the net that are like, your stories. And they're not saying it to me. They're saying it to other people. I'm not that famous. But they're saying it to other people. Okay, I watched this new Star Wars and it just kind of sucks. Or this new Star Trek, it really sucks. Usually they're mad because there are women in it that are empowered, and that's just messed up because women should be empowered. They should be. Yeah, it's like, come on. And I make fun of incels and right-wingers on the story. Much to the chagrin of some of those relatives. They're like, no, that's why they're like, okay, well, yeah, he's making fun of like their kind of blogs would be like angry and be all about like, their own kind of stuff, and no one would want to watch those except unless you were into that kind of thing. So, yeah, it's fine to do a fan film. It's fine to do a rant cast. It's fine to do a making of thing. Go on. Yeah. As long as you're not hurting anybody and you're putting out a story and it's fun and you're not literally referencing directly, like, you got a spoof character who's called Donnie Spurs. You're not really saying he's Donald Trump. You're just kind of implying he kind of is. You're making fun of him. That's fine. That's a parody. That's considered parody. But you're never punching down. You're always making fun of, like, you're not going to make fun of minorities, not going to make fun of religion, not going to make fun of disability, that'd be insane. That kind of thing. Not gonna make fun of race or religion and stuff. Because as Starscream said in the one episode, Transformers, and then later was reiterated by one of the other characters in the Star Trek one. You're all one of the Transformers in one of my stories said, "You're all the same species. Why are you angry at each other with the way you look? This makes no sense." That's true. Well, why would that? That doesn't make any sense. Why are people angry at them because they act or look different than they are? That's a really bizarre thing. An alien species visiting Earth would be like, why are you guys like having wars over political ideology when virtually your ideologies are quite similar? And why are you doing that? That makes sense. You're all the same species on the same planet. What's wrong with you? No, some of the ideologies may be vastly different in terms of their radicalized forms, but yes, not in the case of non-radicalized forms. But it's much more fun to watch a story where the characters aren't full of angst and aren't trying to destroy each other. You can go back and watch some of my angsty 90s era Transformer stuff where I was like, you know what, I've already done that. We've done that stuff. This is fun stuff. This is, commenting on my earlier stuff, going, oh my goodness, what was it that was going on there? I don't know. But nothing got that. So I'm rambling on about other stuff that has nothing to do with Transformers, really, but sort of an after show, so it's fine. So, still a little bit congested from whatever that was that I guess would attribute it to it. It probably was a kind of a cold, I would guess. No, something. Or the weather is weird. But everything is cool now. The Transformers, it's not like when you get Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon thing with or there's too much angst in there. It doesn't need to be that. I like my science fantasy to not be so realistic. I mean, it can be grounded in reality, but not so realistic. It's more fun to have ghost Transformers running around than it is to have like a drama where everybody's like, no, we're so full of angst in our heart. It's much more fun to have the characters acknowledge, yes, I actually had an affair with that other character and I liked it, and yes, even though that's kind of messed up, she liked it too. That kind of thing. Okay. So it's a little slashy, but not quite. Doesn't actually go there. But what are the primes? Are they like the primes are probably just advanced Transformers that have gone beyond into their universe, and like Optimus Prime is just one of the the newer ones. He wouldn't necessarily be the 13, I don't think, because he actually can be killed. He's been killed once, at least once, several times on other shows. I guess Armada and the other one did it too. Yeah, so if he can be killed, he's not like one of the 13 primes, because the 13 primes, original 13 primes that built the Forge and all that, they're way more advanced than he would be. They're like immortal creatures. That's way cooler, the Forge of Solus Prime thing. It's funny. We have one 90-minute story that has us blow up a planet ship. Only have two more kind of retcon it, and deconstruct it, and take it apart. And that deconstruction kind of thing is very much like, in this story especially, is very much like some of my mother's later email letters where she would kind of deconstruct Christmas or deconstruct a holiday that happened, Thanksgiving thing, or deconstruct an event into sort of a mystery and try to figure out what things were going on, because she had the ADHD, adult ADHD, which led into Alzheimer's and dementia. But not all the time. It doesn't always do that. Sometimes it doesn't do that in some people. But in this case, it did. And yeah, so her emails in 2023 are completely incoherent because she didn't she didn't know what she was writing anymore. Yeah, and then we were helping her with it, and it looked like you could read like the later emails and go like, and you won't because we're not going to publish the emails. And you could tell like from the story that you could tell that we helped it because it would suddenly be coherent and make sense. It kind of didn't, a lot of it. So yeah, this Transformer story kind of does something like that. It kind of shows you what that would be like in a sense. Like the characters in the story, possibly the older ones in this episode of Transformers, are would exhibit traits of someone with dementia, which is interesting. So if it doesn't make sense in some places, they could just say, "Oh, she's okay, yeah, that makes sense." Okay, I do not. Quite the opposite. No. Yes, autism and Asperger's is quite the opposite of that. Opposite of ADHD. Attention deficit disorder, in some adults, is kind of the opposite. That's where you can't focus on a sentence and put the sentence together. Attention deficit, you can't pay attention, right? Basically. Whereas autism, you pay a laser-focused attention on little details and things and do 3 90-minute movies in a month because you can. Because I must do it. Must have it done. We're going to release this hopefully by the 1st. But we'll see. Maybe it'll be the 2nd. But it is Easter weekend, so who knows. And it's sort of an Easter story. Yeah, if Space Jesus was a Transformer. Yeah. It's kind of a rewrite of the Space Jesus story, the lost guy thing. Yeah, there was an infamous church play about the Space Jesus, which I helped to write back in the day. Gave some ideas for that one. But I didn't write it, I just helped on it. I said, "No, this would be fun. We'll do this part." Just to be angsty, have him like come back and they don't recognize him. He's screwed up. Yeah, that's really screwed up. Boy, that's really 90s. Well, it was 1997, so it made sense then. Yeah. So this is sort of an after show. Kind of, yeah. We'll see what we're gonna do after that. Transform your day into an adventure. Autobots, transform and roll out. So yes, I knew that we would have some issues with the making of Transformers here. Decimation Paradox. I've gone through about 20 minutes of raw footage so far, and of day 1 and 2 essentially. The raw footage, cutting out all of the little like parts where the camera moves back and forth. There's one blurry guy. We got it. But yeah. Yeah. So the whole story of this trilogy seems to be dependent on them jumping into the future and coming back, and a little time travel cheat, and they joke about that in there. I came to the idea that like conclusion at the end of part 2, we showed a shot of part of the space vessel thing that had allegedly been destroyed in the first episode. So part of the space vessel, the space city, as we cut back and then roll credits in part 2. Well, there's your hook. There's why part 2 wasn't actually happening, and neither is part 3. So yeah, so like the Andraxis stories about Wrath, and it was a Wrath place, not a planet, it was a space station in that version. They're on the space station. So yeah, let's clarify that. So we need a scene, post-production scene. Now that we're in post-production, so it's not technically a reshoot. it's a scene to clarify, like they did with the other ones, something. We don't need all the Transformers in it. Probably just Prime and Megatron, maybe one other, explaining to one of the primes or something that all the stuff that happened to the human characters and the robot characters hasn't actually taken place. It's part of a dimensional world, a fourth dimensional world construct thing, and they're living inside it, and so they can go space and time, fourth dimension. So they can go either way they want in that world that they're in. And at the end of part 3 in this story, they're released from the space bridge and go out, and then we see what's going on. So the events seem to happen to them. It seems to be real to them, but it's a holodeck. It's like a dream. It's not time travel. So yeah, then you're not doing time travel. It's a holodeck. It's a sideways universe. They've created another universe in the Tesseract thing, and they haven't escaped it. Then you can get away with saying, oh, okay, so the 2032 Robotech footage and where Rick Hunter and Max are at odds, and then there's a scene where Max and Miria are at odds, and Lisa Hayes is killed, and then the darker middle chapter, and old Flint dies, and then old Cabell dies. All of that, the darker middle chapter, was just part of the Tesseract. It was messing with them. It was generating a world with Robotech people in it, that sort of pseudo Space Bridge, Dark Universe version of Space Bridge, kind of mirror universe a little bit, and things were happening a little weird. The Autobots and Decepticons were a little off. They're a little off. Some of them can fight the gods. Once they can fight the demigods, you should realize, they're not really fighting the demigods. They're in another Wrath type simulation the whole time. That way they can say, okay, it wasn't time travel, which means that not only was some of the older scenes where the girls were older in one scene, and then they're older still in the next movie. It's all part of the simulation. So, yeah, the Robotech people and Dana and Maya and all of them, it's a version of them picked from the universe, from the multiverse, but it's actually not really affecting our main cast. They're actually, the Robotech people are going to do their own thing in the future. They can do their own thing. They're fine. Assume they return and they do their own thing. It would not negate the events of the Sentinel story. It would not negate the events of Space Bridge or any other of these fan fiction stories. There's your end. There's a better ending. There's a better ending. So basically, I was trying to get away with time travel without getting away with time travel. Trying to get away with a dream story without not being a dream story. But then Neil deGrasse Tyson and Chuck Nice were talking about extra-dimensional characters and beings and stuff. And over there on this other channel, they were talking about the characters in Dune, the extra-dimensional beings in there, the Ixians and all that, the robots, Ixian people, and Leto the Second and all that, and Dune. Everybody copies Dune. And stuff like that, and how they would see prescience would allow them to see certain things. It actually makes the whole trilogy make sense to do that, to have a change in that, and have it say, oh, yeah, well, actually, it is not time travel at all. It's a longer version of Andraxis. It's like a fan version, and it wouldn't necessarily pay homage to the Belinda Kelly's original stories, Blood Crow or whatever. It wouldn't pay homage necessarily because it's only a reference to it. And we changed it to a planet. We considerably altered the story. So, you can listen to the credits. It's all Transformers mush, lexicons, character if you want to. Probably not though, because it's not enough of it in there. So yeah, you kind of, you can totally get away with it. You can say like, okay, well, all right, so all that stuff that happened to the G.I. Joes and the Robotechs that drastically altered G.I. Joe, Robotech, and Cobra, it never actually happened. They never actually took place. So they're like, well, oh, okay. So all of last two episodes. Thus, a version of the vision within the story, the Decimation paradox. Thus, the title of the story. That is a Decimation paradox. That's a nice way of saying a science fiction fan has an episode of insanity or something, and sees a world that's not really the world. It's a fun story, and that's fine. Well, why not? The fiction within the fiction, meta universe type of deal. Two brief scenes would clarify that on the end of all this footage. Something to the effect of, and it's about 90 minutes. Something to the effect of the Transformers having gotten back at the after the other thing and meeting up with the humans, and going like, oh yeah, by the way, all that future timeline stuff, that was part of the nature of the space bridge, protecting itself. It was protecting itself from being destroyed. The space bridge was actually showing them a possible future, possible timeline, and all that stuff if they destroyed it. And then retconning itself back and saying, like, oh, it's an AI, so it can do that. Cool. Which means the Robotech people are still down the road, which means the story's still out there somewhere, and you can take whatever you want from it. The Transformers is a multiverse that works way better than the Marvel multiverse. And they were originally a little related. They Power Cosmic and all. So yeah. The trick with a multiverse story is you write a good story that takes place in a multiverse, and you don't do a lot of heady over-explanation. Well, in this case, you need some heady explanation. You need them to explain that ending, because otherwise, it's a little odd. It's like, did they use time travel or didn't they? And yeah, and I thought about it last night. Yes, and yes, this is also dedicated to Mom, but she's still alive. She's still hanging on there. But yeah. We're approaching Easter Sunday is tomorrow, so yeah. And April Fool's Day is coming up too. So, but this is not an April Fool's joke. No, this is a Transformers fanfic that very much is in the tradition of all Transformers mush and lexicons. From the dailies I've seen so far, it looks like it's a love letter to lexicons. It's like another continuation of that series, and as legacy, and that's just awesome. Because yeah, and no, we're not going to make any books out of it, and no, we're not going to connect it to Star Trek, as I indicated in the other making of part. No, not doing it. So this is some continuing footage from the movie, establishing what happened. We can put our chief brains in there and have them doing it. Maybe if we want, Yeah. Well, actually, what you could kind of do is you could have like. If you did a flash forward to the future, it would be weird. It'd be like, okay, are they still in 2032? No. So you can't have the Robotech people show up in this story and say, oh, we weren't actually there the whole time. You have somebody else say that, because that would confuse things even more. No, you just have probably Chip or something, mentioning it to the space gods, to the audience, to tell the audience, oh, it's part of the thing. It's happening. You had people appearing and disappearing from the ghost world. I liked how the teaser trailer establishes these sort of zombie ghost robots are like, we're actually. Howard Ritter, how are you alive? You were killed in the other universe. He's like, well, actually, the 5 of you are actually dead. We haven't gone back to the regular universe yet. That should tell you something weird is going on right there in the teaser. It's a twist. I think I probably stole that from a ghost story. But oh well. You are actually dead, my dear. Ma. You're living in a simulation. Ha. They literally are living in the simulation. which means yes, that would be an indirect cop out again for the lesbo scene that happened briefly, and Mom would not have approved of that scene, not really, only as a joke, but she would not have approved of that. Dad, on the other hand, would have said, "So what? Cares what they want, whatever they want to do, they can do." But yeah, no big deal. Uh, that's their thing. They're into. That's fine. Anyway, so yeah. So yeah, let's do a pickup scene. Yeah. This is Calcats the Calcatster. This is a slightly update on the making of the story. It's April 1st, and yeah, so I watched the dailies of the movie and putting the movie together. Released the Transformer movie, the story inspired by the writings of Mom, but having nothing to do with anything she wrote. She passed away. She went to heaven, all that, today at about noon. It's not an April Fool's joke. She just decided to go on April 1st. She was 88, and yeah, so yeah, she was in a facility, but hospice, dementia hospice. So she is so the story dedicated to her, as well as the other Star Trek Legacy and the other ones. Does that mean the supposed Queen Bee studio is effectively done? Well, we can go back to calling it On Location Cats, I guess, if we want to. There's nothing wrong with calling it that. Also, Slick Otter, Mark's cards are good now, so step in, and there can be some Slick Otter as well. So yeah. So far, there's nothing new. After we post this, it's rendering now. I'm going to post it tomorrow on the 2nd, in the making of. This is added to the making of, when that Mom passed away. And we're still here, so we still make movies, still make scripts, stories. And the next thing that we're going to do, since we did 3 whole Transformer ones, is go back and do a Star Trek one. To think of a Star Trek one. Probably won't be a weird, trippy story like this one was, with the Transformers going to see ethereal, otherworldly creatures and things, thinking that the ending might confuse future fans, and they might get upset and make diatribes. But no, they won't. If you watch the whole thing, the premise of the story, the story arc overall, is that at the end of the first movie, they weren't sent into the future, and then further into the future, they were trapped by the space bridge thing inside the Forge of Solus Prime. They've been in there thinking years have gone by. That's 2032, and the Robotech people came back and all that. And it's a connection with the Allspark and through the space-time continuum. But it does mean that's where the Autobots went on their way to Tyrol to go to the Robotech people. So it's connected, which is neat. Yeah, that's what they were doing. That's how they became the Zor Lords, through a sort of a roundabout kind of, not a Mobus, but more like a snake eating its head kind of idea. That's where they were during that period, on the way to Pantoma and Tyrol. I'm assuming that's where they went after that. But they had knowledge of the future, allegedly. Well, the alien planet was generating that knowledge. You're never quite clear whether the Zor Lords actually had the knowledge, or whether they were just kind of going along with what the programming said they were supposed to do. And also, if they were aware that the Robotech Cell stories happened, they watched them. Yeah, so they knew what was going to happen and come back. They watched them. Yeah, so it's not time travel. Not exactly. It's not dimensional travel. And they're not exactly ghosts, so it's not Ghostbusters. Obviously. There's no busting ghosts. Since it's a mystery story with ghostly critters. That has nothing to do with anything current except that ghost stories and mystery stories were something Mom liked. So she would have approved of this story. It's quite funny, silly, sort of fun story, fantasy. Yeah. And the twist at the end is we get the little Daisy Ridley Star Wars action figure is supposed to be a personification of Mom, which is funny. As the creator of the universe, the Prima, which predates Primary, the Prima, the Primes, because who begat Primus, Unicron and Wrath and all that stuff? Who begat the Primes themselves? So we meet Primary, the Mega Mom, and she was a Tron, which is consistent with the Primes. One of them being Solus Prime, who was partly a Decepticon, or one of the early Decepticons. Yeah, so it's all. Yeah, it doesn't. You don't need to know the lore. It's made up anyway. And I threw in some of the primes that were the non-canon and added them to canon. Logos Prime, for instance, it's sort of a version of Delta and other things like that. It's not important. Anyway, so that's what's going on, and transform your day into an adventure. Enjoy watching fantasy movies that are about funny things happening. That definitely gets the seal of approval. It's fun. So yeah. Yeah. So, right on.